Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Rob Sleemaker. I'm the founder of Vasa Incorporated. We've been in business for 24 years now, so we're pretty excited about that. And I'm really proud to have the privilege to know these gentlemen here, and even more honored that they have used Vasa products over the years and have used them and discovered ways to use them far beyond anything we ever imagined when we developed these products. And those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to be asking them questions about how they use Vasa products to integrate into their programs for teaching swim technique, for developing specific strength and power, and also when they've got an athlete that is injured, can't get into the water, but otherwise is healthy in the upper body and can still do conditioning, but how do they meet that challenge using our products and other products? I don't want you to just talk about Vasa, but how do you integrate all of this together? Because I'm sure many of you coaches are wondering, you know, if you have our products, how do you use them most effectively? If you don't have our products, but have a need, and maybe this will show you how they can benefit your program. So again, welcome. I want to introduce the coaches on the panel. First up is Gary Hall Sr., here to my left, coach at the Race Club. I'm sure many of you people know who he is, and his son Gary Jr. Dick Shoulberg is next, famous coach from Germantown Academy. And I have to say a quick story about Dick. Dick was one of the 3 coaches who first discovered the Vasa trainer. This is in 1990, I think, or 89 or 90. And North Thornton, Dick Shoulberg and Richard Quick came up to our booth, and I knew nothing about the swim business or swim coaching business and didn't even know who they were. And they started jumping up and down, all excited about what the Vasa trainer was and some of the things that it did. And of course, come to find out later when I was looking through the program, I found out who they were. So I got pretty excited once I found out who they were. So thanks, Dick, for all your support over the years. Matt Kredich is next, University of Tennessee. And Matt has developed some very interesting and valuable technique DVDs. And we're fortunate enough that he used the Vasa trainer as a teaching prop in some of those DVDs, but I highly recommend his DVDs. If you haven't heard of them, check them out through Championship Productions. Andrei Vorontsov, national team coach from Russia, and Ph.D. physiologist, right? Oh,
sports science. Yeah.
Sports science, yeah. Yeah. And Jack Fabian from Keene State College, and father of Eva Fabian, open water swimmer champion. And Gennady Sokolavas, who worked with U.S. Ph.D. exercise physiologist, worked with USA Swimming for many, many years, has done just vast amounts of testing and quantifying what people are doing with swimming, and very innovative guy too. Lots of great ideas for both products and analyzing what people are doing in the water with their techniques. So welcome. Thank you guys for coming. So why don't we start with one of the first questions that comes to our mind. How have you been able to use the Vasa trainer or the Vasa ergometer for teaching technique, teaching form, or correcting technique problems? And it doesn't matter to me who wants to go first and talk about that. We also have an athlete who can demonstrate for you if you need to. Matt, you want to jump in on that one?
Can we get the athlete?
Sure. Charles, come on over, Charles. Do you want the forearm cuffs on there?
Yeah, you could put those on.
I think Matt should do it.
Yeah.
Jeff was a good demonstrator last time.
Why don't some of you come in and sit on the floor?
Yeah, come on in right up here in the front. There's plenty of room.
Plenty of room.
I'm just going to do is that okay to do these
okay.
pulleys instead?
I was a volunteer assistant in 1990 for Richard Quick when he bought, I think, 5 or 6 Vasa trainers to put up on the pool deck at Stanford, and I was just starting coaching, and so the machine has essentially been, I didn't realize that it was brand new, other than I had never used it, but the machine was really has been a part of the teaching that I've done for years, and I'm not going to take too much time here, but I just want to show a simple exercise because the catch position, I think, in freestyle and butterfly breaststroke is one of the most difficult positions to teach in the water. There's some real subtleties, obviously, in getting the fingertips, the forearm, the shoulder, the scap, all in the right place. And so to teach it in the water can be very difficult. To teach it on land is easy when you have, when you can communicate with the athlete and you can manipulate them, their arms and body position. So just a very simple exercise we do is essentially create the catch position. And I asked, or Rob actually saw that we made some cuffs to put on the forearms because I feel like that's where the center of pressure is. That's kind of where we want to balance the pressure through most of the stroke. And so why don't you go ahead and start moving through just some fly pulls and do it really slowly. And this is basically what we're doing for the first several weeks of training on land, and go at about a quarter of that speed. What's your name?
Charles.
Charles, thank you. Really, no, that's too fast. Really, really slowly. Okay, and so we'll do this really slowly, and you essentially can't go slowly enough because at every point here, Charles is creating some muscle memory or neuromuscular connections, and with the machine we can vary the resistance, we can jack up the height, we can add another band on the back, and at some point he's going to start to fail. And that failure is going to look very familiar to all of you. He's going to go to a position that is stronger in this particular plane. Why don't you go ahead and simulate failure by dropping your elbows. Okay. Well, that's too much. You didn't fail that badly. right there. Okay. So here we can say, all right, Charles, rotate your fingertips downward, get that elbow forward more. Okay, and continue. Okay, and however you want to teach it, you can have him bring his hands closer underneath. We like to have them finish with their fingertips in the back. And you can see that when Charles dropped his elbows, the cuff slipped down to his wrist. So that's a sign that we failed. We want the fingertips down here, elbows a little bit more in towards the back here. So we can do a lot of manipulation. And if he moves through it really slowly, again, every little position that he's going to be in is he's creating a memory or creating a kind of a snapshot for his body, and we can do, I think, some really good coaching there. So this is one of the ways that we've used it to teach.
You know, I want to just add to that. Again, I mentioned about Matt's DVDs, but you know, as you've already witnessed, Matt's an excellent educator and can really create the mental images for what he wants the athletes to do. And when I watched the DVDs, I just thought they were outstanding. So as a follow-up to this talk, if you can look for those, they're really great.
Thanks, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
Don't go anywhere.
Whoa.
I need you, buddy. Seriously.
Okay. You want him back on the machine? You want him to use the handles or the cuffs?
Use the handles.
Yeah.
And straps too, right?
Yeah.
Make it a little harder.
I'm going to have fun with him.
You want? No. Okay. It's just for demonstration. Okay.
Yeah. I have 9 of these, and someone had the audacity to call it lane 9. No, it's lane 7 at Germantown Academy.
But most people have 8 lanes. So.
Well, I only have 6. So don't rub it in. No. I also have 4 ergs. Nort and I fought who was going to get the first one back to our home base when we first saw it. The original one was a lot longer, more.
And it was taller off the ground. Yeah.
Just a little bit different, but the same concept. What made me mad, Matt, just a minute, Charlie, just come back more. Now, don't move, because I'm going to talk, okay? so, what made me upset was I copied the East German incline boards. I had a friend of mine that would come and bring kids from France, and he had access to the East German fitness room. And I said, take a picture. I'm really good mechanically. My trade is I'm a precision machinist, model maker. That's my background. I have nothing to do with swimming. But I figure out ways of, my background I think helps my swimmers mechanically. How you doing?
Not too bad.
Good. Okay. Now, what we do, we have 9, but all 9 of them are facing our sliding glass doors. So they actually can see, sort of, it's a mirror image. They can see what they're doing. So please don't move. I just, go ahead, take a whole break. Yeah. I like my athletes to go up the hill fairly fast, and I like my athletes to come down the hill really slow. That's the way I like to use the tool. We do a whole bunch of exercises. If you walk into GA's pool at 6 to 6:28, there's some form of fitness going on for the students who go to school there, and then they only swim from 6:30 to 7:40. So we don't do a lot of swimming, and we do 28 minutes. Could be Vasa, it could be TRX. I put these real high pull-up bars in the pool area above the dirt line on the building, and we have 2 TRXs that put their hands and they put their feet in. I call it suspension training. And so they rotate through. Some days we'll go 28 minutes on Vasa, 28 minutes on TRX, 28 minutes on the incline boards. We have 9 spin bikes up in the balcony. So my room is sort of like a great area for kids to get stronger. The best way to overcome an earache, go ahead, pull that back. Now hold. No, you went too far.
Hold mid-stroke.
Yeah. So Charlie comes in and he says, I have a real bad earache. I don't want you to swim. Go ahead, hold that. Now I want you to hold that for 30 minutes.
All right.
Yeah. Guess what? The earache goes away. So, all right, now I want to show you something that I think is really critical. I want you to put your feet up at that end. I want your head to come down at this end, and then I want you to hold on to the straps.
So just,
Hang my feet up.
no. Just grab the
Grab-
straps
yep.
like this, okay? And you're going to lay with your head down
Yep.
at that end, okay?
And now lay on it.
But hold on to those straps if you can.
Yep.
There you go. I'll have to.
Yeah, good. Get your feet inside.
Yeah, you're going to have to just go like this.
Yeah.
Just keep your knees up or whatever.
Okay, now swim freestyle. That's recovery muscle group work. When I analyze my swimmers when they're racing, if their recovery starts to shorten up, they increase the number of stroke cycles per 25 yards or 50 meters, and they go slower. And if you don't work the recovery, don't stop. If you don't work the recovery muscle groups, I think it is one of the most important things we do at Germantown Academy is working in recovery muscle groups.
Now, I'll chime in and say that we get reports.
What do you mean? What do you mean? How old are you?
22.
And what's your best event?
Freestyle.
Oh, it's perfect. Sprint freestyle is perfect for you. But do you feel that?
Oh yeah, 5 strokes.
Okay, good. You can hop off. I wanted to interject this because it's something that I don't think. How was that? Yeah. But I don't think we do enough work, and I'm not one of these scientist guys over here. I'm glad we have them, because I'm just basic. But I think you have to work the recovery muscle groups, and I think this machine is the best way. You can make it lower.
I'm just going to take it easy on it.
Yeah, you can make it lower. But here's the beauty of this machine. He just, boom, click, bang, drop the incline. He can click, bang, raise the incline. He can add more tubing. He can have tubing. He can have, there's so many different things you can do. I don't work for him. I just own 9 of these and 4 of those. And I cycle my kids through every day every day there's 28 minutes of fitness in the morning. And then in the afternoon we do 45 minutes. And it varies. It's not the same exercise every day. So, but I wanted to show you recovery muscle group work because I think it's really critical to fast swimming.
I've been at some of your practices, and it's like a beehive. It's so busy. These athletes going around doing so many different things. It's great. Great use of your space.
I see.
Sure. Gary?
Just so you know, I've been a fan of Vasa. We started in '96, I think, when Mike Bottom first started coming down to Phoenix and coached the Phoenix Swim Club in the summertime. And we continued to use them, and then I think in 2008 we got the ergometer and started using that. But the one thing I wanted to say in relation to technique is the more I've been in this sport for 50 plus years. I've only been coaching for 5 or 6. I'm a newcomer. But I think I've learned more about the sport of swimming by being a coach than I ever was as a swimmer or administrator. It really makes you think about what you tell your swimmers. And you hope you get it right most of the time. But I think we've all observed that, you know, except maybe in the 50 where you still see some swimmers excel with a deep pull, everybody's gone to a really high elbow, which wasn't taught when I was swimming, and it was very different. But when you look at the anatomy and the physiology of pulling and the difference between pulling here and here, it's really very different. And it involves very different muscles. And I'm convinced that the muscles that need to get strong, we don't usually get strong, and we need to get them stronger, particularly around the scapula. Those are the muscles that are really involved in this motion. This is not, in my opinion, there's a lot of people have different theories about why this is better. My belief, it's not about power. You have a conflict going on between the forces that power us through the water, that speed us up, and those that slow us down, the drag forces. But swimming is very unique in that the water is 800 times denser than air, so all the physical laws that apply come into play at very low speeds. And in swimming, the drag forces end up really being more important in the long run than the power forces, especially at higher speeds of world-class and elite swimmers. So what I love about the Vasa is it helps us teach this. I believe this position is a position of least drag, not the position of most power. And this position here, when you look anatomically what you're doing when you're recovering here and you've got this elbow up here, you're in a negative position and you're trying to keep this elbow up the top. You're extending your shoulders back. And that's not a position of power. That's the way it initiates. As you rotate through, the angle goes from negative and eventually neutral and then positive as you rotate around. But getting that muscle group back in here strong is, and teaching swimmers to not just swim in the position of power, but in the position that's going to enable them to go the fastest is very important. I think the Vasa is the best way to do that. And the longer I'm around strength training, the more I realize that it's a mixed blessing. We now, I think, have come to the belief, or at least I have, that swim-specific strength is key. And the bigger you get, the more penalty you're going to pay, because the human body in water is exquisitely sensitive to drag coefficient. It's a little bulkier, it's a lot harder to pull that body through the water. So we've really enjoyed using it. Great for us.
Anybody else want to say anything about technique? But
we actually use this machine here for technique, and this is sort of for our endurance training. This is when I'm training my daughter, who's an open water swimmer. We used to only have this machine, and usually when you see the old Vasa, you don't see the pulley system on it. Like most people that I saw kind of would take this off and throw it in a closet, and then you'd never find it, and they would just use the webbing. But I actually we liked using this. She learned a lot about technique on this. We do 2 types of swimming with it. We call it underwater recovery and overwater recovery. And so on the underwater recovery, I don't know if you could maybe jump up there. Yeah, just lie in front. And then if you swim freestyle and just sort of recover without doing the high elbow recovery, just kind of like that.
Just keep an open hand.
Yeah. I'm trying not to bounce. See if you can sort of swim in one position there. Get hand all the way back. So there's actually a lot of movements that you got to coordinate here, and you can see that he's sort of bouncing when we've worked on this technique. There we go. And the other thing that we try to build onto that would be sort of body line, like trying to focus on body line, because in open water swimming, one of the things that we believe is that your body position breaks down at the end of 2 hours. And the more you can sort of develop that body position, the more speed you'll have at the end of the race. And we actually got that concept from Fran and some of the stuff that Fran was doing. Okay, now try to do freestyle with the overwater recovery, like with a high elbow. And this is really tiring, but you can see that the shoulder blades are kind of working together nicely. And what we'll do is we'll do alternate sets between when you go like 45 seconds on with a overwater recovery, 15 seconds rest, and then 5 seconds on with just sort of that underwater recovery. Okay, you can rest there.
Right. And Jack, what do you tell them about form while they're doing this exercise?
It's really, I mean, the one person that does it quite well is my daughter. We'll have a mirror down there. We'll be working on elbow position, body line, and then also really trying to complete the stroke. Because you can see when he sort of started off, his stroke was a little bit unnatural. And what you try to do is develop the strength where you can sort of have a nice long stroke, and you're not moving on that. The bench isn't moving up and down, but you can. At first, it's a little bit jerky. You kind of have to go very slow, but then you can actually get it into a normal cycle and sort of replicate your normal stroke cycle. So you try to do that with your underwater recovery, and then the overwater recovery, and it's also a little bit like Dick was saying, that you're building up the strength in your recovery as well, because it's a very hard position to hold.
Great. Now, how do you, anybody can chime in, how do you integrate those things that you just talked about with the water, getting them back in the water? I mean, does anybody have them do a drill or an exercise on a machine like this or on anything on land and then go back, immediately go into the water to try to have them remember that motion? Or practice that motion in the water?
That's a great idea, but our Vasa trainers are pretty far removed from our water, because our pool area is pretty toxic to metal things. And
Right.
so what we do is we do cycle between this machine and actually the erg, which is a little bit more like a swimming type motion. And so quite often she'll do sort of like an endurance set here, and then go work on some technique and go back to her endurance.
Great.
We will sometimes have a practice that may feature about 5 or 6 different stations of working on some technical concept on land, and then moving that to the water in the form of a drill, and then the progression finishes with some pretty fast swimming of whole stroke, whatever it is we're working on. And so with the Vasa trainer, that'll be a big part of it. We may do some of the slow work that I showed. We will also practice explosive movements, and so we'll crank it up pretty high and put a couple bands on and ask the athletes to hit the top. Basically, that's kind of a good general measurement of success for them. Hit the top as many times as they can, and then come to the water and do something really explosive for usually less than about 15 seconds, so 25s, or maybe some other kind of resisted swimming, so they can make a connection between the resistance they feel on land to some resistance that they feel in the water. And it may be against a cord, it may be with paddles, with fins. But I think we've used it as kind of a starting point for establishing a concept, whether it's explosiveness or a particular technical part, and then we try to progress it to the water. So there's some teaching and metabolic training involved.
Rob and I had talked about this, but I had never personally gotten on the erg and trained with it. I've watched our swimmers do that for years, and a couple months ago got on for 3 successive weeks every other day and worked out for about 30 minutes. And he had told me about this, and I didn't think anything about it, but he had mentioned another one of his swimmers. But I was particularly focusing on really using correct technique, and I wanted to do everything, perfect stroke every time. So I made a point to try to do that, and after a couple weeks I would go every other day into the pool. I actually started, instead of feeling like on the bench like I was in the water, it was the reverse that was happening. I actually, in the water, started feeling like I was on the bench swimming, and it was an interesting phenomenon I didn't really expect. But you actually transfer the learning that you get from here to the water, rather than vice versa, which I think is good. And to me, it's an important concept.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is that we have a master swimmer customer that just randomly reported to us that he got the erg because he needed something he couldn't get to the pool. It was a life logistics situation, and he thought, okay, I'll try to do on the ergometer what I do in the water. And after a few weeks, what he discovered was that he was going back to the water trying to swim like he did on the erg, and because he felt like that was faster, and I think it has something to do with the way the frame of the machine is set up. You've got a monorail going down the center, so it prevents you from crossing midline. You can line up your hands and fingertips and arms and pull in a kind of a straight back way versus the old S pull. So there's some biomechanical advantages of setting up your stroke and your frame because of the way the machine is set up. And does anybody want to talk about how you use the ergometer or the trainer when you've got an athlete who can't get into the water because of an ear infection, a cut on their foot? I mean, we hear stories, we get stories all the time from customers, but I'm curious to know if you guys have had personal experiences with an injured swimmer and what you did about it. Jack, I know Eva, what did she break her?
Yeah, 8 weeks out of the Pan American Games, she broke her ankle. And so we actually switched for a couple weeks before they could put a removable cast on her. So basically just swimming, she did all her work on the master trainer.
On the erg or the trainer?
On the erg and trainer. She would switch. She likes to switch between. She'll do 1 day a week where she'll just do straight swimming on a normal pattern. Just straight swimming, maybe 16 to 20 minutes of straight swimming on the erg. And she'll always alternate between maybe 2 minutes of that underwater recovery and 2 minutes of overwater recovery. And then she'll do 1 day a week where she does, we call it like Vasa erg combos. And she would go back and forth between maybe a 4-minute set here and a 4-minute set there, working on, this was for technique. She would try to work on her stroke rate and her heart rate. And then the last day of the week, Friday, we usually do a cardio circuit where we'll do, it's only about a 4-minute cycle on here, a 4-minute cycle on here, and then she'll do, when her ankle is working, we'll do like 30 minutes of spinning. But we substitute, we actually hooked up a pole and did some rowing. There's an adaptation.
Oh, the kayaking.
The kayaking, yeah. So she would just sort of do kayaking for 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we did for a couple weeks until we could actually get her into the water where she could just pull. And it worked fine. It was actually very hard and tiring. She was happy that part was over.
Andrei, you've got ergometers at your facility? Yeah.
We have a few types of pulling machine in our facilities, and for many swimmers, this machine is machine of choice. But if we are talking about swimming technique, we must consider the two moments. First, that hydrodynamic, when we move in the water, we have plus here, minus here, not only resistance here. Sucking force here, preventing hand from moving back. We cannot replicate that on land. Then any pulling machine, the best pulling machine, cannot replicate the muscle patterns we have in swimming. So we're using this machine for two purposes. First, recovery after trauma and prevention of injuries. So we had work with Anastasia Zueva when she had shoulder problem last year. We work now with Stanislav Donetsk, who didn't take part in Olympics because he had shoulder operation. Now he's recovering using this machine a lot. And then second purpose, development of maximal power and speed strength. It's faster to make on land. And then we must consider that when we to swim with velocity, 2 meters per second, we develop resistance, active resistance from 10 to 18 kilos. That's enough to swim with velocity of 2 meters per second. But about 40 to 60% of our energy we're wasting just to rotate water mass. Finally, all force we develop in land training, we must make transition to have capability to utilize that force in the water. All the small fraction of our maximal force, we need to swim pretty fast. So that's why it's a very good tool. We're using a lot, but for two purposes. It's injury protection and recovery after injuries, and development of maximal power and speed strength.
Yeah, for those of you who may not be familiar with the ergometer, we have some very sophisticated electronics that can measure the athlete's power output in watts. It's expressed in watts, and it's you can look at the right and left arm independently. So you can, especially under a fatigued state, you can start to see if their power is dropping off on one side versus another. And it's not to say that that's happening in the water, but at least it can give some clue to look a little further with video analysis, try to find out what happens with that athlete in a fatigued state, and again, you know, measure, repeat, test again. I don't know, have you done anything with that, Matt, with the ergometer, looking at power?
Yeah, we have. We'll use the ergometer for a power station, and we'll have them execute 10 pulls or 20 pulls for a maximum power output, and then you can also get some sense of their endurance and measure up essentially the power per pull over 10 versus the power per pull over 20 or 30, and see how that average changes or how it diminishes over time. I think that's good training and testing.
You know, and Gennadius, if you could speak to this a little bit, because, you know, Gennadius has developed some very sophisticated testing equipment where he can measure, you know, the swimmer's velocity, simultaneously videotaping what's going on with their technique, and you overlay the velocity graph with the video, right? So you can look at what's happening. But I'm curious to speak to this about power on land versus power in the water.
Yeah. So there are many different ways, as you see here, to use Vasa ergometers or Vasa the swim benches to develop strength. And you see coaches talking always the examples when athletes have been injured, they couldn't swim, so they have been using these ergometers for a longer time, and suddenly you see big improvements in the results. I call it like a new stress on the body. And every time you are delivering new stress on the body, your performances will improve. Swimmers' performances will improve faster. For example, if swimmer trains the same methodology for many years, okay, with the same coach, you're not changing too much, going from one year to other year, third year. So initially, this new stress when swimmers started to train works pretty well with this coach, okay? And then eventually stress diminishes because body not responds, adapts to the stress. That's why changing the stresses in practices, as well as changing the stresses from one year to other year or in one season, is very important. And by using Vasa equipment, you can change the stresses very easily. So therefore, you see sometimes athletes are training completely different program because of the injury, and suddenly the results improve a lot. Okay. Same was with, remember with Ryan Lochte a couple years ago, he was injured, he couldn't swim, he hit the land training really strongly, and suddenly he improved a lot in his performances. So because sometimes there is some missing stress that athletes never received before. And that's why, in my opinion, you should always supplement training in the water with Dryland training. And basically, swim-specific training is more important than just general Dryland training. One of the coach mentioned already before that being bulky doesn't mean that you will swim faster, because you may create just more extra drag in the water. Another thing is, Rob has mentioned that we developed so-called swim power equipment, and most of you probably saw already. If you're interested to learn, stop at our booth over here, which records velocity and force instantaneously, 60 times per second, and synchronized with the video in real time. So basically, that opened us, opened many areas what we need to work on. For example, from this test, we learned there are some weaknesses and strengths in the stroke. And everybody is individual. Some athletes have some strengths, some weaknesses. And once we identify the weaknesses, we can work specifically using Dryland equipment such as Vasa benches on the weakness of athlete has. For example, a lot of swimmers have weakness at the beginning of the stroke. Okay? If you look at the velocity curve during the stroke, when athletes begin the pulling, initially it's very low. And it reaches much higher values in the middle and towards the end of the stroke. Okay? So I was thinking why it happens. For example, if you're doing dips on parallel bars in gymnastics, okay? To start the dip is pretty hard, okay? In the middle it's easier. At the end it's very easy. Why? Because you're recruiting larger body muscles at the end. That's why it's very easy. That's why everybody can finish the stroke strongly, but not everybody can begin the stroke strongly, okay? Michael Phelps probably is one of the top, the best athlete in the world who begins the stroke very strongly. He has really good catch. Why he has a catch? Because he connects the body much better. It doesn't mean that he is the strongest physically. He just connects arm to the body better. And if you're able to connect arm to the body, you're developing more power at the beginning of the stroke. So, and therefore, by identifying the weaknesses with the swim power test, we can see what athletes need to focus. And I like the ideas, and we are using this also a lot at Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs with swimmers. When athletes are coming, we're identifying the problems, then we put on the Vasa bench, and you stay static in this position for maybe not 30 minutes, Big Shoulder suggested, maybe just a few minutes, okay, static in this position. So you're connecting much better arms to the body in this position, okay? You're staying in this position here, here, so just through your weakness. Don't worry about your strengths. Strengths is always harder to improve, but weaknesses you can improve faster. So therefore, working on your weaknesses, on swimmers' weaknesses, you can reach better results than working on swimmers' strengths in practices. And one of the also drill that you can use over here, and I'm sure that coaches are using, is pulling on the back. Charles, can you demonstrate? Lie down on the back. I don't know how far this microphone goes. On the back? Yeah, on the back. Grab the handles. There you go. All right. And now start the stroke. Okay, begin the stroke on the back. And stop at the beginning, okay? All right, stop here. So now in this position for coach, it's very easy to check. Are you connecting your arms to the body? So I'm pressing here. If it's relaxed, you're not connected, okay? Try to build connection between your arms and your body, your abdominal, through other muscles, okay? And now slowly go to other position, a little bit further, good. Keep arms a little bit straighter. Also notice that straighter arms, you're building better connection, okay? It doesn't mean that you need to swim straighter arms. In my opinion, you need to bend, but to develop feeling connection, you can develop better with straighter arms, okay? Next position, good. So it's much easier already here, yeah? Once you're passing shoulder line, it's much easier to do. That's why I don't worry about finishing the stroke. I'm more worried about your weakness, beginning of the stroke, okay? Go back again slowly. Again, stop in this position, okay? Go back again, stop in another position. And then again, go back, stop in this position, begin. Okay, thank you. I don't want to kill you. So anyway, you can be very creative and create many different exercises here, but the goal is, as I told, to work on the weaknesses, not on your strengths. If you have strength in something, you can work very hard and improve just a little bit, okay? If you have weakness on something, you can work the same time, same amount of work to do, and you can improve much more.
We got a question from North Thornton.
Question, something that I just learned recently from a strength trainer, is that if you take the ring finger and the small finger and eliminate the pressure on the other side of the hand, what happens is there's a neural pathway that goes up through the armpit, attaches to the larger back muscles. You can lift more weight and you can pull more with more power just pressing on the outside of the hand. It definitely engages the large muscles. Otherwise, if you work in this side of your hand, you're working shoulders and arms, which is a lot weaker. So we actually took the Vasa trainer and put individual finger straps on it, and we just leave these first out and just work the back two, and it really makes a difference.
That's great. I mean, I think that's another great
I think it's a great idea, yeah. Yeah, I remember we discussed that with you probably last year or so. Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. I mean, you are working even different fingers now.
I have to tell a story about Gennadius real quick because it speaks to his genius a little bit. He's been testing the U.S. athletes for many, many, many years. He's used the Vasa trainer in conjunction with a dynamometer, right?
Correct.
And he's developed a vibration device that they use for strength training and also for recovery, and it goes on and on and on. But I don't know. Michael Phelps was about 14 and a half or 15, and we happened to have a Vasa trainer at a nationals, and one of my employees was there, and he snapped this photograph. Brings it back. It's a photograph of Gennadius standing next to Michael Phelps. Michael on the Vasa trainer, hooked into this dynamometer testing machine that Gennadius was collecting data on. And so there's this picture, this young, skinny Michael Phelps. And my employee said, see this guy in the red shirt? That's Gennadius. He says this kid is probably going to be somebody one day. And so I have that photo posted up in our office just to remind us, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Michael was, I think, 14 years old at the time.
Yeah.
Charlie, I want you to demonstrate one exercise. Rob, will you put the handles on the webbing?
Yes. And do you want them a little longer, the straps?
Yes, just a little bit longer. And you're going to lay on your back.
Ooh, you're going to want them a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, one loop. Yeah, that's good. I want you to do double arm backstroke.
See if those are even. Is that right? I'm going to go one more on that one. Whoops, this one got looped. Sorry. Try that.
Double arm backstroke. Just any way you feel comfortable. Go all the way. Every morning in 91, 92, David Berkoff did this for 16 minutes. Now, what I want you to do, when I say stop, I want you to stop. Okay? So you're going to come down the hill a little bit, and I'm going to ask you to stop. Come more, stop. Now, real slow, right knee to your stomach, pull it in. And now, stretch it out. Now the other. Keep going, ride a bike, go real, that's too fast. There's Gennadius' vibration machine right there. Keep going, keep going. But do you feel, we're now working total body, and swimmers swim with their total body. How was that? Whoops. Did you pass out, Charlie? You're okay. I'm not giving you CPR, though. What the hell? What happened?
I don't know.
He's trying to give us a hint.
Break.
Okay, you're done, Charlie.
Way to go, Charlie.
You were asking before about
What happened to your lights?
I don't know.
and working through injuries, and I just wanted to add in there that at one time I did have 3 cracked ribs, and so I couldn't swim because of that.
Right.
And in order to just hold it, just breathing was difficult. I had to have a really full kind of a rat brace, but I was able to get on the bench and swim because that compression on where the breaks were, where the cracks were, kind of held me in place and limited my role a little bit, but I was still able to use all the muscles in my back, use my arms, and that was 3 weeks before my championship. So I just want to let you know that I was able to use that even with cracked ribs.
Yeah.
I know personally that doing work out of the water exclusively works. We had a girl in our area that had a severe shoulder trauma. She couldn't swim. And coach called me and said, it looks like she's out for the season. I said, well, Marty and I just went down to Georgia, and the strength coach gave us a whole folder of stuff that we can see what we can do for her. So she did a lot of work on the bike. She can get in the water and do some kicking. A little later, she could do some drills and stuff, but couldn't do much shoulder-wise. Needed serious surgery. She did some severe stuff on the bike. She put, it reminded me of Shoulberg's kids. She put the bike on the kickboard every day. On the diving board every day, and she had pools of sweat coming down in the pool. She encouraged the kids in the water. They encouraged her, and she won the state meet, New York State meet in the 50, and took second in the 100. Basically, just doing work out of the water, and purely out of the water. So that stuff, that stuff is super beneficial.
Regarding the shoulder injury, so that was a separate form of exercise to get
Oh,
it.
she had tears, yeah.
Our situation with my daughter has a shoulder injury, and so we have her working with a therapist right now. He's recommending that she stay out of the water for 1 year before she comes back in, and I say, and that's pretty long. So
Something I want to integrate with this, and I don't, I don't use it as much as Dick and you guys do, but on the bike we did the bike stuff was sets of fartlek type work. So much of this level, longer of this level, and the different, and they'd be like 24-minute sets, or there was a 16 that was faster, 24 that were longer, and every day there were so many of them that she could integrate them any way she wanted. And I think of this thing as a great tool for doing some fartlek stuff also. As we're into a phase now where so many coaches are into tempo swims, creating swims by tempo. I do a lot of that with my coaching, and that might be something
Andrei
to
spoke.
look into here.
I think Andrei spoke of that essentially in a different way, but you can very quickly develop power on land that you might not be able to do in the water. So you can do it in a compressed workout time period. We hear reports from athletes and coaches that will use the ergometer especially for that, to develop power with short interval training. You can get a lot accomplished, but it's all upper body work. And if the athletes can connect their torso with the strokes, that's the ideal scenario when they, in terms of form and how they actually use the device. If you just lay flat and don't connect, you're going to get some benefit, but it's nowhere near the benefit that you'll get if you're connected.
Nelm showed us how that works back in the day, and
Right.
connected.
So I want to say thank you to everyone on the panel. Thank you for coming. If you have more questions, we can take those, but it is after our time if anybody needs to leave. Again, thank you. And thanks to the panel.
Dick, is there a certain diameter that you like on your rope pull? And is there a certain type of rope that works better when it's wet?
I put them in 1979, and it's the same rope that we had up in the wrestling room, and I've never changed it. It's just a climbing rope. They're advertised in any good magazine. The one thing the wrestlers come in, our wrestlers 2 days a week, they'll do bucket swimming and rope climbing, and they are so much better than the swimmers on rope climbing, and they never use their legs, ever. And then we have the two ropes, one over lane 4 and one over lane 5, and it's probably about 12 feet from the wall. And Bart Schneider, who in 1980 went 20.01, which was pretty good out of a distance program, he would climb the rope like this with no legs, and then he rolled back and kick off the ceiling, gave me a heart attack. And he's still swimming in our master's program, but I love rope climbing because it develops everything from here to here. And we do it Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and we have teams. 2 are rope climbing, 2 are vertical kicking with a weight belt or a weight in your hand, and then 2 are doing turns. So I know it's not really, only 3 people per lane is not good in our program. It's usually 8, but I'm afraid not to rope climb. I'm afraid to give it up because it builds strength the whole A to Z.
Is there a specificity to the angles that you have to use within 8 or 10 degrees of a range of motion? Do you have to mimic the strokes on the machines in order to get the maximum?
I want them to be always changing their position. I want them to swing way out. I want them to go underneath. I just want them.
That's what I'm saying, on the erg or on the Vasa, I just found out my team has 5 of these things in storage, and the coaches hadn't been using them. So you're saying on the Vasa they should be pulling all the way out and back?
We move everything
pulling straight
around.
through.
Just like if you throw a medicine ball, it's not one angle, one direction. We move. We're always moving.
I was wondering if you use the underwater rope in conjunction with the climbing rope.
No. But Jack Nelson did.
Anybody have anything else you want to add? All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.